In most modern metropolises, the skyline belongs to the future. We look up to see towers of reflective glass and corporate steel, structures that signal where the city is going. But in Athens, the sky belongs to the dead. No matter where you stand in the concrete valleys below, you cannot escape the gaze of the past. The ancient temples sit on their high limestone cliffs, looking down at the mundane, chaotic rhythm of 21st century life. There is a silent, unwritten rule written into this geography. You are living in a museum that you did not build. Today, we are exploring the psychology of the ancestral shadow and what happens to the human mind when its daily reality is permanently overshadowed by an unreachable peak of human history. To understand the psychological friction of Athens, you have to look past the tourist brochures and step into the concrete valleys. After the devastation of the mid-20th century, the city had to rebuild at a frantic, chaotic speed. The solution was the polykatekia, a dense concrete modular apartment block that spread across the landscape like a grey wave. It is an architecture of pure survival, built without grand designs or open green spaces. This created a radical aesthetic clash. Modern Athenians spend their days navigating dark, narrow corridors of concrete and exhaust, while living just meters away from the most celebrated, mathematically perfect marble structures ever carved by human hands. The mind is forced to split its perception. You live in the chaotic, gritty present, but you walk in the permanent shadow of an idealized past. In psychology, there is a distinct emotional burden that comes from living among ruins. A ruin is not just a pile of broken stone, it is a physical monument to a timeline that has already ended. It is a structure that is constantly speaking, but only in a monologue. It tells you what used to be, what was lost, and how grand the world once was before you arrived. When an entire city is anchored to these ancient anchors, it creates a subtle, creeping nostalgia, a longing for an era the residents themselves never actually lived. The ancient marble stands as a silent, unmoving standard of perfection. It subtly whispers to the modern citizen that their current achievements, their concrete homes, and their daily struggles are profoundly temporary compared to the eternal marble above. But the human psyche refuses to be entirely crushed by history. It adapts. If the ancient marble represents a sterile, untouchable perfection, the modern Athenian street represents a fierce reclamation of space. Every square inch of the concrete valleys is covered in street art, graffiti, and political manifestos. This isn't just vandalism, it is a psychological counter-monologue. By painting the concrete, the modern generation is shouting back at the ghosts on the hill. They are declaring that the city is not just a graveyard for tourists to admire, but a living, breathing, imperfect ecosystem that belongs to the people who breathe its air today. It is a chaotic truce between the sacred, unmoving monument and the fluid, unpredictable energy of survival. We build cities to move forward, to innovate, and to chart a new map for the future. But when a city's global identity is entirely tied to what it accomplished 2,000 years ago, it becomes trapped in an identity mirror. The world demands that Athens remains ancient. The tourist economy relies on the preservation of the myth. This creates a strange, systemic alienation for the modern urbanite. The city is forced to prioritize the preservation of the dead over the infrastructure of the living. It is a geographical trap where the present must constantly apologize for not being as beautiful as the past, and where every excavation for a modern subway line is interrupted by the bones of ancestors who refuse to leave the grid. A city's true depth is not found in how well it preserves its marble, nor is it found in how fast it pours its concrete. It is found in the resilience of the souls who live in the space between them. The next time you look up at an ancient ruin standing high above a modern street, don't just admire the history. Look down at the concrete valleys. Remember that the true genius of a city doesn't belong to the ghosts who carved the columns, but to the living who navigate the shadows they cast. The towers of the past can hold our imagination captive, but the chaotic, imperfect present is the only place where history is actually being made. You can worship the marble, but you must live in the stone.